Good morning, friends. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Sue.
Good morning, Shelby.
Good morning.
Good morning, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cool Room. By cool, I mean we're cool. And it's also not outside, where it's sweltering. And welcome to Contemplative Sunday here at Common Thread. If you are here, you belong. And a special welcome to any newcomers you belong to. Quite a few of you are here this morning, and it's great to see you. We're so glad that you're joining us today. And if after spending a little time with us this morning, you want to know a little more information about our community, we invite you to use the QR code or the URL here on this slide, and we will send you a no-pressure email to learn a little bit more about us, and we'll give you the opportunity to connect with someone in our community, because information alone only goes so far. It's connecting with the people who make up the life of this community that really lets you know what we're all about. So, we are happy to see you here this morning, and if we hear from you, we will be delighted. And the people who make up the life of this community care deeply for each other, especially on our rough days. So if you're going through a rough time right now and you want someone to listen, you can always use this QR code to let us know, or find the link on our homepage, on the homepage of our website, and my dear friend Morgan will reach out to you. And we also almost always have a trained listener in the library down the hall waiting to hold space for anyone who needs it after the service. And since our listeners are all trained in the practice of self-awareness, you might also find that they may be able to offer a perspective on your situation that you just can't see. And you might grow in some self-awareness yourself during the process. There are several trained listeners in this community who have done that for me, including my good friend Joy, who is our listener today. And so she's right over there. Head down the hall to see her after the service, or send us a message if you need someone to stand with you. If you want someone to stand with you, we want to stand with you. And so let's affirm together, as we do each Sunday with strong and united voices, if you are here, you belong.
If you are here,
You belong.
Well done. We are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light.
every one of us carriers.
And we are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath.
We are every one of us carriers of divine breath.
So now I invite you to greet your fellow carriers of inner light and divine breath and pass the peace.
Faces down, take a look around. Do your fingers move? Do your lungs inflate? Are you tired? Are you weary of hitting hay you've been holding? What's heavy? What's heavy behind? Leave what's heavy. What's heavy behind? Leave what's heavy. What's heavy behind?
So again, welcome to Contemplative Sunday as you're taking your seats. Sometimes in the winter we say, boy, it's so good of you to brave the cold. And today it's really good of you to brave the heat to come out here because, boy, it's a hot one out there. So, someone who isn't here today and is taking a well-deserved Sunday off from leading our music is Joe. He's our music director, and I don't know if you all know how much time, energy, and love Joe pours into sharing his gifts with us each week, with us and for us. But his devotion is unparalleled, and I just want to thank him right now. Hear, hear. Thank you, Joe. He's not here. Maybe you're listening. So this week, Joe and I are going to sit down to discuss the evolution of our music program. And we'll also be meeting in the next few weeks with other musically talented members of our community who want to share their gifts, especially on Sunday mornings. And we've had quite a musical journey here over the past few years, and we've gone about it in an experimental way. Some hits, some misses, all of it helpful as we learn and grow. And as we look toward the future, we want to ask some more intentional questions, starting with, why music? What is our aim when we sing together on Sunday mornings? What is music's purpose in the context of spiritual community, particularly in the context of our spiritual community? And how do we create meaningful experiences through music that resonate with all of us? As a leadership team, we are beginning to approach our music within the context of a coherent philosophy, informed even by what we might cautiously call an emerging theology, and doing it all in a spirit of collaboration that considers your feedback from the community survey last fall and the feedback we continue to get on the regular to ensure everyone's voice is heard. As an amateur musician myself, I'm excited about the possibilities for the future of our music. And as we discern and plan for the future of our music, we will also draw from our past and the ancient wisdom of spiritual traditions, including one of the most powerful practices found in almost all spiritual traditions, sacred chant. So we've recently been exploring chants crafted with Quaker wisdom. We've done some Aramaic chant. We threw a little dance in there. And sometimes we'll have Gregorian chant playing in our contemplation room down the hall. But why chant? Are we doing this just because someone here, maybe this someone, has a particular fondness for this musical style? No. It's because chant is actually an ancient technology for growth in the spiritual life. And not just in the Christian tradition, but in nearly all religions and spiritual traditions, because in its repetition and rhythms, chant uniquely helps us enter into a meditative state that literally taps into a universal vibration and energy that uncovers our connection to the divine and reveals our unity with all that is. And as all music does, when we chant together, we do something that none of us can do alone. And we create something that has never been created before. What comes is always a new arising. Our voices create a powerful energy that breaks down individual barriers, helping everyone who participates access the reality that we are part of something greater than ourselves, revealing the spiritual truth that we are all interconnected, that we are one with each other at our core. So in short, chant is a contemplative practice that can lead to spiritual transformation in both our personal lives and in our communal life together. So this morning, we will introduce a simple, easy-to-learn chant based on a line from the Gospel of Thomas, a text you may or may not be familiar with. It's not part of the official church-sanctioned Bible, you probably know. When it was discovered in a hidden collection of texts in the mid-20th century in Egypt, likely hidden by desert mothers and fathers when the imperial church ordered such texts be destroyed. And unlike the canonical Gospels, the Gospel of Thomas doesn't tell a story about Jesus' life, but shares profound and sometimes mysterious sayings attributed to Jesus. Sayings that, when pondered in our hearts in a Lectio Divina kind of way, can help us grow in deep wisdom. So, a few other musicians for whom I am very grateful for their contributions to our community are going to help us this morning with this. Melissa, supported by Lindsay and Inder, will lead us in a chant based on one of these sayings from the Gospel of Thomas. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden, all will be revealed. What does this mean? Well, it's kind of a mystery, which means I can't say what it means for you. Only you can. But what I hope we will all do together is join Melissa, Lindsay, and Inder in this chant and allow ourselves to feel it, to sense the rhythms, to see what arises in our hearts, in our understanding, and in the energetic vibrations within and among us. So we will chant these lines twice, and Melissa, if you wouldn't mind getting up and just demonstrating for everyone real quick what this is going to sound like.
Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed.
Thank you, Melissa. So we'll do this together 4 times, after which Jack will pass the mic to anyone inclined to share what is on your heart this morning, so that we might hold what is on your heart in our collective heart. After which we will chant these lines twice, one more time as we end. And if you're able to get these words in your mind, or even just hum the tune, I invite you to close your eyes so you can more deeply experience this practice for yourself and with each other, and enter into this contemplative practice with your whole being, body, mind, and heart. So let's all find a comfortable place in our bodies. Breathe in deeply. Exhale fully. Do this a few times until you feel relaxed and present and open to whatever unfolds in this practice within you and among us.
Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden all will be revealed.
Hello. Oh, why? Sorry to break the silence there. This was really lovely, by the way. Thank you, Melissa. And I was just thinking when we were doing this chant, for me, it really came across as getting to know myself and getting, like, sitting in the presence of just myself and just reiterating to myself, like, who am I and what do I identify with, and just coming to that, because I know for me, I tend to think about my past or my future, or, something other than who I am right now. And so that was it for me. That was a lovely reminder of that.
What's on my heart right now is just thinking of my mother, and she's just relocated back to Raleigh, and she's, I guess, really struggling just with some transitions in her life. So that was kind of a nice little song and prayer for me to think of and to pass along.
My daughter-in-law is having heart surgery tomorrow. It's a genetic thing. It's an AFib, and they're going to go in and cauterize veins and such. And if that doesn't work, they're going to have to give her a pacemaker. So if you could keep her in your thoughts and/or prayers, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So what this brought up for me is that a lot of us struggle with kind of finding ourselves, and I've really found this to be true, that we can find ourselves in anyone around us, and everyone that we really get to know, we can identify as some part of ourselves, and it's in a way it's like a shortcut to getting ready to know yourself.
Kind of similar to what Morgan said. What I was thinking was about listening and contemplative listening to another person. And I was thinking how the presence within them, it could be a spiritual greater than them presence. But if we get to know the presence before us, even if that person is offensive or not great as far as personality alignment, there's something divine in that person, no matter how despicable they seem or whatever in that context. But in most cases, when I'm listening, there is a presence in another person. And if I listen for that divine presence, I get to know them better, I know myself better, and there's a connection that happens. And it's something beyond the two of us. And I think that's what I heard when I was thinking about having a connection with others with a greater presence between us.
I keep being reminded of the Rumi quote, "I looked for God and found only myself. I looked for myself and found only God."
For a long time, almost my whole life, I thought of all of the people and all of the people in the world in two different categories of lost and saved. Eventually, when I became more connected to people, I wasn't able to really see it that way anymore. I was only able to see everyone as human. But all the people around me still thought of people as two different categories, and I was the only one that saw everyone as one category. And now here, the wonder that I found here is now I'm surrounded by people that see people as just human, and that really means a lot to me.
The key word for me in that chant was presence. I've been taught that the truth is always when, and it's now. God is not in the past, God is not in the future, God is now. So when I find myself drifting into the past or into the future anxieties and worries, I remind myself to bring myself back to now, so I am aligned with God, God's will, and out of ego.
Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden, all will be revealed. Come to know the one in the presence before you, and everything hidden, all will be revealed.
And as we come back, we have a few announcements this morning, as we always do. After the service, we'll have What Are You Thinking on Zoom, and our summer clothing drive begins. If you forgot to bring clothes today, no worries, we'll be doing it for a few more weeks. Next Sunday evening, join us for the film 1946. The following Saturday is the Artsy Group meetup downstairs. The next morning, we have centering prayer down the hall before the service, and our self-awareness drop-in will be after the service. And the next Saturday is when we are invited to volunteer at A Note in the Pocket, which is the clothing drive. So next Sunday is your last chance to see 1946. It's not streaming anywhere anytime soon. It's only being shown at film festivals right now, and locally, as far as I know, it's only being shown here at Common Thread. And at Out Raleigh, we really did get a lot of interest in this film. People who said they'd been trying to find where it was they could see it, and they were thrilled that we were screening it. And it doesn't mean they'll show up, but if they do, we'd love to have a solid crowd of CTC folks here to welcome them. And if you haven't seen it yet, and you want to join us, or if you know someone who you think might want to see it, spread the word. There's no charge, just come, we'll have childcare, and after we're gonna head over to Linwood Brewing to chat about it over some beer, or the beverage of your choice and dinner, and that will be July's Brew Crew, just a little later than we're used to, but hey, it's summer, we can do this, right? I'm talking to myself, I'm usually in bed by 9 o'clock, but I'm gonna be there. Hope to see many of you there too. So Shelby is upstairs with us today, which today is, if you didn't know, the day before her birthday. So you might want to grab her and wish her a happy birthday tomorrow. And she's going to speak to us for a few minutes this morning. And in fact, she's going to do this the last Sunday of every month so that we can all be up to speed on what's happening with our kiddos downstairs. And this month, she's also pitching a really fun event coming up that we won't want to miss. So Shelby, I think this mic works.
Hello? No, it doesn't.
It's working.
Hi.
Yeah, you got
Okay,
it.
great. I'm not this tall though, so I'm just gonna do a little adjustment. Okay, great. I'm 5'2". Okay. Y'all about to try to make me cry before I have to do announcements. All right. Okay, so I wanted to update you guys on what we do in the kids' classroom, what we have done in June, and what July is looking like. I have started making monthly newsletters since May. If you missed June, it is in the kids group in the app. If you are a parent and you're not in that group, please join it so you can see some pictures and see what we're doing. July is also in that group under resources in the app, and I also printed some out there on the table in the lobby area. Okay, so for June, our theme was inclusion. So every month we have a virtue or a theme or both. And we kind of take pieces from everywhere to teach the kids about that virtue. We take some Bible stories, we take some things from different practices, and mostly we just use fun kids' books and different resources that I find on the internet from teachers all over the place to pull together some good curriculum. So today is our last one for June. So today we are going to talk about the story of the lost sheep. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then we can talk about it later. It's kind of a little bit content heavy today. We're also going to talk about is it bullying? So the difference between bullying and not, and how to separate those. And then since we've done inclusion, one thing that we're going to touch on again today is just differing abilities. In July, I'll tell you in a second, we're going to talk about like motivations that people have and, you know, how they might come from different places, which you all know about probably from Enneagram. But that kind of ties into our abilities conversation today. And then we will also do some affirmations. We do affirmations most week. We will either end with affirmations or a small version of a prayer of some kind. I did want to read you today's affirmation just so you can hear what it's going to be that the kids are going to say. It's kind of in between an affirmation and a prayer, actually. It's, I see the beauty in everyone, regardless of their background or abilities, and then they'll say that. And I create an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and respected. And we'll also do arts and crafts, and we play and all kinds of stuff, too. So we'll do some art that has to do with our lessons. For July, our virtue is friendship. I kind of break it down in the newsletter a little bit, so I'll just read you a couple parts of this, and then if you're interested, even if you don't have kiddos in the program, definitely take one and look, or invite your friends with kids to come check us out. So at the top of each newsletter, I'm kind of writing our intention, so why we're practicing that virtue, why we're teaching about it. So for friendship, I said we are helping lay the groundwork for strong social skills and emotional intelligence. Having supportive friendships helps boost self-esteem, resilience, and overall well-being. And that my hope for our classroom is that children can come in and find a place where they find a sense of belonging and connection, and they can let that divine light shine in them. I have a little try this at home section where I'll put an idea or two each month for things you can just talk about at home or a project you can do together. And then I also have breaking it down, so kind of like a subtopic of each week. A couple of examples. July 7th, we're going to practice active listening. And it's not super boring. We do it in fun ways, right? We can take something as simple as Simon Says in the telephone game to help them transition into the understanding of the fact that words can get twisted, right? And to be active listeners in what people are saying and not just what you're thinking about, so that we can help them develop that listen first mentality. We have shared interests, deeper relationships, and then the very last week in July, we are going to very, very basically introduce the Enneagram a little bit to them, just speaking again about how people have different motivations and understanding where other people are coming from might not be the same motivation of where you're coming from in an argument or conversation. And then at the bottom, I also have my contact information and either a prayer or affirmation that is just for you that you can say at home or you can say with your family. And I put upcoming events or reminders. So some upcoming events for us. July 28th, like we said, is Thrive, and I would really, really, really like everyone to come. Even if you don't want to play, come and watch. I would really love that. Bring your lunch, just cheer us on. Ideally, what I would like to see this event become is like, is there pictures? Oh yeah, there we go. There's last year, and it was a lot of fun. It is a big mess. Like, you will get messy. Come prepared to like be a child and just destroy everything you're wearing. What I would like to see eventually, I want to see like moms letting out their aggressions and like a flower bomb standoff between like a 4-year-old girl and an 80-year-old man. That's like what I'm picturing. I just really want that. I want people to get excited and like, I don't know, like make a T-shirt or something. But there's 2 teams, as the summary is just red team and blue team. Alpha Red, Omega Blue, and then it's just flower bombs. We throw them at each other. It's a capture the flag style event. It's really easy. Anybody can play. We make sure everybody's being nice so that kids and adults can play together. You do not have to have a child or be a child to attend. This is an everybody event. I want everybody to let out your fun, release some tension, and throw flower bombs at people. So that is the 28th. There is a sign up in the app. Pretty please sign up. Invite your friends. It's really fun. We're going to be at Pullen Park. It'll be after church. We're in like a very back field, so we're like not right next to the playgrounds and stuff. So we have our own space. There is a shelter there that is shaded. Maybe bring a fan or something, some ice water. But yeah, so that'll be that. And then August 25th, I have on here also, we have 2 things. We have our Finding Yourself in the Story ritual. That's our middle school move up. So our 5th graders going into 6th grade. And then that day after church, we'll have back to school Sunday. So we'll just have an ice cream bar and be like, yay, we're going back to school. That's it. Please sign up for Thrive.
Thank you, Shelby. All right, and if you missed anything of what we just ran through before, as you know, you can find more details one of 3 ways in the app: on the website or in the weekly email. So these 2 beautiful people are on this slide because they are both about to embark upon new chapters in their lives this summer. And these new chapters require that they move away from Raleigh. I know. I've gotten to know Amy in Orlando, and I know many of you have too. They're both very dear to me and very dear to us all. Before we send them off with our blessing, I've asked if they'd like to get up and share a few words with us, and they both said yes. So, Amy, come on up. The floor is yours first. Yes, you'll need to adjust it.
Hi. So I'm Amy, and I moved to Raleigh for my master's degree at North Carolina State University 2 years ago from California, and I came here without a support network in this area whatsoever. I was kind of off on my own, embarking on this journey, and that can be a little scary and lonely, and thankfully I found this community, and it's really meant a lot to me to find this church family when I've been stressed and anxious dealing with school. Coming here has helped me to recenter myself and remind myself of what's really important and what really matters. And I'm grateful for the community I've found here that has supported me and helped me through struggles with graduate school and even going through a breakup during my time here. It's been pretty challenging 2 years, but I've had support through Common Thread. When we put up in the announcements saying, how are you doing, rough days, there's someone to listen. That's really, the church really means that, and I'm really grateful to have had people to provide a listening ear for me and gotten to participate in a life story group and really get to know people here through ups and downs, and I'm just really, really grateful to all of you and hope to take the lessons I learned here with me into the future, and I'm so grateful for all of your friendships. Thanks.
Hey everybody, I'm Orlando, and I found out about Common Thread through Jack. We were at a concert, and he basically, I'm just gonna pull it out.
Yeah, there you go, hold it right like that. There you go.
And he basically came up to me and was like, "Do you know our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?" And I was like, "No, I don't." He said, "Well, come to Common Thread. You'll learn about Jesus, and you can give your life over to him." And no, he didn't say that. We talked about spiritual things, and we aligned a lot about trying to navigate this world. And he invited me to church, and at first I was like, "Oh my God, another white person inviting me to a very white church." But my experience here has been phenomenal. I think my first Sunday here, I didn't know a church like this could exist. It's the church that I dreamed of being a part of, and it's even better than what I could have dreamed of, because there are systems and procedures which I could not create. Like this week, I got a text from someone who said that he was a part of a team that texts people. I was like, whoa, there's a process for even texting people, which is amazing. And it also starts on time, which I'm never on time for things, so that's cool. Or at least I think it starts on time. I don't never here for that. But yeah, seriously, I think the impact that this church has made will far outlast the year that I've been a part of this community, and I feel really grateful that it exists, and I feel a little envious of those of you who get to stay longer and continue to deepen your friendships and relationships with each other, with yourself, and I hope that you will continue to experience a rich spiritual life and hope to stay connected.
Come on up here, Annie. So we're going to miss you guys, but as this slide says, you will always be part of our family here. And you know there's a remote community out there, a few of whose members we would have sent off just like this if we'd had a ritual at the time that they left. But they are just as integral a part of our community as they ever were, so we hope you'll consider joining them and stay in touch that way. And hopefully we'll see either one or both of you here again. Yeah? So, all right. But in the meantime, will you let us send you off with a short blessing? Okay. Will everyone please extend your hands toward our friends here as we pray. Indwelling divine, we thank you for the gift of Orlando, for the gift of Amy, and we are so grateful for the time we have had with them, for the friendships we forged, and for the grace and wisdom they have shared with us. And as they move into these new chapters of their lives, may Amy and Orlando be ever more aware of the inner light that shines brightly within each of them, of the divine breath that animates each of them, and may they, with us, continue to be healers and repairers of our world, sustained by the common thread of oneness that runs through us all. Amen. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. Got some gifts for you, too. And these are, Morgan went and got you guys some goodbye gifts, too. So here you go. Take these. Enjoy. Some goodbye gifts. Farewell gifts.
Morgan.
I know, Morgan.
All right.
Pardon me. No, you're good. Trying to figure this out with the theater company.
I don't, we got all these theater marks on the floor, Gene, so I don't know if this is where the lectern's supposed to be. Is this where it's supposed to go? All right. Well, good morning.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Do her song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I've played the teacher, the preacher, guru, maintaining posture, celebrating, separating me and you, as if the thoughts of God were mine and mine to speak. I've listened with an agenda so I could prove all of the shit I believe to be true, just to hide the fear of being weak. Burn the scorecards, balance out the scales. We are one wind, distracted by a different sail. Underneath what's detectable with eyes, every particle's vibrating with the one light. If we keep running around deciding who's right and wrong, and tell me, where are we headed, how can we all belong? All our logic is colliding and it's constantly dividing me from you. So damn those eager protestations on your tongue. Shut your brain off long enough to hear the lowly hum. Underneath what's detectable with eyes, every particle's vibrating with the same light. Beyond the land of the right, the land of the wrong, there's a field waiting for us. All the notions of you, the notions of me, we finally agree, don't mean a thing. Beyond the land of the right, the land of the wrong, there's a field waiting for us. All the notions of you, the notions of me, we finally agree, don't mean a thing. Beyond the land of the right, the land of the wrong, there's a field waiting for us. All the notions of you, the notions of me, we finally agree, don't mean a thing. Burn the scorecards, balance out the scales. We are one wind, distracted by our different sails. And damn those eager protestations on your tongue. Shut your brain off long enough to hear the lowly hum. Underneath what's detectable with eyes, every particle's vibrating with the one light.
I started doing What Are You Thinking almost as soon as we started Common Thread, and I started it because I knew that I was saying some things that were easy to object to, and I knew that people needed space to object. That's part of how we learn, is articulating what are the things that are pushing against our basic belief systems. So I love it when during What Are You Thinking we object, and last week we objected. Hey, preacher man, I object. Hey, preacher man, what's this talk about obligation? What's this talk about owing? Jack said it this way. He said, I'm not sure if I agree or disagree, but I tell you what I feel. I feel like I got a swarm of bugs flying around in my face. That's always what you want when you stand up and give a lesson. So I thought the idea might be a little bit counter to our expectations, because obligation, as a rule, is countercultural. Right now, collectively, culturally, we chafe under the notion that anybody can obligate anybody else to anything. So here's my hope for this lesson. I hope to create some thinking tension. Two concepts, possibly both held in our minds at the same time, both valued, but interestingly in opposition one to another. The first thought is, don't obligate me. And we'll see in a moment there's good reason why we will have that thought in our minds. Second thought alongside that one is, I want to be obligated. Have that thought held in tension. That kind of internal tension is often how we learn new things. It's often how we open ourselves to new thinking or new ways to conceptualize things. So that's my hope, that we can hold that kind of intention. So let's start with the idea that roots our discomfort with the idea that anybody can obligate anybody to anything. I said there's good reason why we resist that kind of obligation, because in many ways, being obligated has been abused by a lot of people in a lot of different ways. There is something in obligation that we definitely do not want, and that's especially true around religious obligation. Religion has kind of mastered heavy-handed obligation. There's a whole bunch of moral obligations. You must and you have to, and they usually have to do with sex. There are participation obligations. You must attend church. You must serve church. You must give your money to the church. There are role obligations within religion. If you are male, you must X. If you are female, you must Y, often turning out that X is better than Y. Obligations to obey authority figures, who sometimes turn out to be crooks. Obligation to avoid certain aspects of culture, usually the fun ones. When I was a kid, religion obligated me to avoid Dungeons and Dragons, AC/DC, and bikinis. And I was fine avoiding Dungeons and Dragons. And so here we are, a religious organization talking about obligation, which I can imagine. Oh, damn, bait and switch. I thought Common Thread was different, but here we are, religious obligation. So we will, as we do, explore that, maybe unpack it a little bit. But before we do, I'd like to first acknowledge that resistance at a visceral level, at a feeling level, to be observers of it within us, to be observers of that thing that exists inside of us. It's in there, and it's usually in there in an unseen kind of way. It's usually running under the level of our own conscious awareness. It still shapes our thinking, it still shapes our actions, it still shapes our reactions, but it just isn't seen. Now, when that unseen sense of obligation is running, some personalities will feel the obligation and feel pressured to conform to the obligation. Other personalities will feel that obligation and feel rise up within themselves a resistance to and begin to push against the obligation. And I'm going to suggest later that both of those can be very limiting for us. But first, we need to feel it, sense it, know that it's there. One side of this cognitive tension, the idea that we resist obligation. It turns out that mutual obligation runs deep within the religious traditions, which is part of what created the problem in the first place, because religion got the idea that, okay, mutual obligation is a thing. The one another aspect of our tradition is a thing. But as I just described, oftentimes in the religious traditions, that concept of mutuality has been applied very poorly. So, of course, we have a rejection narrative in our heads. But let's see if we can do two things. If we can rethink the core causes of our rejection narrative, and then maybe outline the benefits of a not rejection narrative. And I'd like to start with a really obvious example. We all want community. Our whole society feels the pain as community is breaking down all around us. You've heard the data of the loneliness epidemic. You've heard the data of this anxious generation that's arising. But here's the thing about community. Obligation is baked right into community. You don't have the one without the other. Now, hold on, you might say. That's different because I choose to be part of a community, and I choose to obligate myself. Nobody imposes that on me. And look at you being brilliant. Because if we do sort this thing out, that is going to be how we get there. One of the primary objections people have to obligation is the assumption that often we feel around obligations that somebody is going to impose that obligation on somebody else. And it's often imposed on us by somebody that we don't trust. In healthy, authentic community, it's easy to see that, okay, hold on a second. You're waving at me. What do I need to do? I need to move? All right. Hello, online guests. We are glad you're here. In healthy, authentic community, it is easy to see that the members of the community, if they don't practice a few basic things in common, there will not be a community to be part of. If the members of the community don't practice mutual respect, if they don't obligate themselves to respect one another, there will be no community. Or, if the members of a community don't obligate themselves to give care and receive care, to give trust and to receive trust, to give inclusion and to receive inclusion, there will be no community to be part of. If we don't obligate ourselves to participate, to show up, and to be present in the community, if we don't resolve our conflicts together, if we don't share goals and values, if the members of the community don't carry a set of essential obligations one to another, community is not community, which makes obligation an existential cornerstone of community. Community exists as a web of mutuality, which again is a very easy example to see. Next week it'll get tougher, but it'll be the same principle. Here's the problem. Our culture has taken a very hard turn toward not that. We don't obligate ourselves one to another. And sure enough, community is breaking down. A critical mass of individuals in our society reject the notion of mutual obligation. And given that community doesn't happen without mutual obligation, a whole lot of folks are living in not community. They're not obligated. Nobody's imposing anything on them. Hell no. But also no community. Now again, I'm imagining this response, but Doug, it's not really obligation when I choose it. If I choose to be in a community, and if I choose the commitments that go with being in a community, then that's not an obligation, which is true, and still, we live in a culture that is not choosing the commitments. We live in a culture that is not embracing our mutual obligations. By not choosing these obligations, by not choosing to obligate ourselves, we are choosing not community. Now, in no small part, we're doing that because we don't trust. Those who have historically been obligation imposers, we no longer trust. There is a mistrust of males. There is a mistrust of business leaders. There is a mistrust of political leaders and education leaders. People we don't trust have been the people who have been doing the imposing of the obligations, so thank you, no. Worst offender has been a bankrupt religious system, exacting the deepest kinds of obligations for us and has been exceedingly untrustworthy. So yeah, we don't want that. So let's talk about this a little bit by revisiting a diagram that those of you who have been here for a while will have seen before, this time how this bears on obligation. Wrong's diagram of power. The guy's name was Dennis Wrong. If I was going to have a diagram named after me, I would probably not have wanted the name Wrong. I've had this diagram in my head since I was in school. What it does is it maps the maturity of those upon whom power is exercised to the most appropriate kind of power. So, a child running into the street, it's very appropriate to use coercion power. We pick the child up, we pull them out of the street, we make sure that the car doesn't hit them. But if we are still using coercion power by the time they moved into elementary school, things are going to start to go wrong. A child who is unable to understand the importance or intricacies of sound dental care. In that context, manipulation is perfectly appropriate. We are not going to tell them the whole story of their teeth and how to care for them. We're just going to put a gold star on the refrigerator if they brush their teeth. But if we are still using manipulation power when the child enters middle school, things are going to go very wrong. When teens and early adults don't know stuff, positional power is very appropriate. Hey, young emerging adult, I'm in charge here because I have things to teach you. So watch what I do and do what I do. Do what I tell you to do because, again, I know what you need to learn. I know where you need to grow, which is why I'm in charge. However, if we are still using positional power after people do know what to do, especially on the spiritual journey, things are going to go badly, badly wrong. And in religion, that is the thing that has happened most frequently. We continue to use positional power as opposed to enforcing the essential nature of people finding their own inner voice power. As people mature into adulthood, persuasive power becomes the most appropriate application, and it becomes the job of the person with the power to make a compelling case. It is the job of the person upon whom the power is being exercised to be open and to be exploring and to be listening and to be learning and to sift through what they hear and then to learn to discern. The way we talk about persuasive power in our community is we talk about the inner voice. You've already heard it this morning. We listen to the ancient wisdom. We do. We read the texts. We read all the texts. We listen to those who have positional power. We read their books. We listen to their podcasts. We seek and we learn and we listen. But what we're listening for is the interior voice response. We are discerning of the wisdom that we carry within. Is this particular application of truth, is it applicable to me? And is it applicable for now? Is this my thing, and is it now? Inner voice living, inner voice spirituality. So this book that I wrote some time ago, subtitle is, Can We Still Be Christian in the Quantum Era? And the last chapter, after I've written 80,000 words, is yes, we can, but we cannot be Enlightenment Christians. So when I wrote it 13, 14 years ago, I was targeting post-evangelical Christians, the majority of folks who were in the community back then. So I used language they were very comfortable with. These years later, we're further along on this deconstruction and reconstruction process that we've gone through. So even though I would change some of the language I would use, the conclusion would still be the same. We can be Christian, but that word has to mean something very different than it used to mean. In our earlier world, before quantum physics, truth existed as an understanding that we all shared together. And it existed as an understanding of being a fixed thing, a certain thing, and an immovable thing. The truth was this, absolute. And now we live in this different world. Truth is not that way. It is uncertain, it is paradoxical, and it is relative. And that's causing a whole lot of consternation. A lot of the big conflicts we're having as a society is that shift in how we just imagine the nature of things. It's a deep, fundamental shift. It challenges our most basic assumptions about everything that makes up a society, and especially what makes up a religion. So it's no wonder that we're at each other's throats. This is hard, hard stuff. But anyway, back in the days when we were living in a fixed, absolute truth world, it was easy to assume that the reverend guy, or the bishop guy who told the reverend guy what to do, or the professional person had the authority because they knew the one and true truth better than we did. They had better access to the one and true truth. So it was a whole lot easier to allow those people to assign obligations to us. And you may be aware, we don't think that way anymore. You go to a doctor, and by the time you get there, you've already diagnosed yourself on WebMD, and you just want to see if this guy knows what he's talking about. We haven't fully mastered a new way yet, but we have rejected the old way. And the old way that we rejected was anybody imposing obligations on us because they were in the know and we are not. Well, it turns out as we make this shift as a culture, our religious tradition has an app for that. As our new world is emerging, we have been able to rediscover a part of our tradition and a part of other traditions as well that has long been neglected and that has long been ignored. There have always been those on the spiritual journey who were not content to have a spiritual journey, to walk a spiritual journey, to live a spiritual journey that conformed to the culture's expectations. There have always been a group who have insisted that religion is to bring culture to conformity. Culture is not to bring religion to conformity. And that means that there have always been those among us who have desired and then discovered and then lived in a spirituality of direct encounter, personal experience, not informed by the cultural norms, informed by direct encounter with the indwelling divine. This is a spirituality not assigned by an authority figure. This is a spirituality not mediated through the institution of the church. This is a spirituality not mediated by the priest and the bishop and all the way back to Peter. There has always been a concept, and we emphasize it in our own community every time we gather, that we are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light. We find divine direction best by going within. This part of our tradition has been called mysticism, and it's organized around the notion that you have to find the inner voice. You have to find the inner wisdom. You have to find that place inside where you are a carrier of courage and inner peace and inner truth and justice. Our religion's current upheaval that's going on right now, including the dying out part and then the coming alive part, including the losing our way part, including the finding our way again part, all of it is grappling with that. Now, again, a whole lot of implications for a whole lot of parts of our tradition in the book, but here's one implication for today. Where do we get our obligations. And where do you think we get them? We get our obligations from within. We get quiet, we get still, and we listen for the interior wisdom that says, this obligation is for you, and this obligation is for now. Unfortunately, the world would be a much better place if this was so, but you do not get your obligations from the preacher man. Would that it were so, because I tell you, I could make the world a better place. But once we become grown-ups, once we've gone through the developmental process, we must get our obligations from within, where we are, every one of us, carriers of the indwelling divine. Emerge into our adulthood, and that part of our tradition, the mystical part of our tradition, the direct encounter part of our tradition tells us you will emerge into, you must emerge into wisdom guided by the inner voice, by the indwelling spirit. Not the preacher guy, not the highly respected author, not the podcaster. Now, by all means, listen to all of those sources of wisdom, but what you're listening for and where you get your obligations from is the inner voice response when you listen to those voices. That's why we practice working the circle. That's why we practice quiet listening and lifelong learning and authentic community and selfless service, because they help us discern the inner voice. They help us discern our obligations. Here's the problem. As a culture, we don't. We don't look for, and we don't listen for our obligations, because unseen, running in the background, a very strong set of shared, mutually reinforced, highly individualistic instincts. Pay no attention to the voice behind the curtain, because there is nothing there for you. Here's where you find truth. Here's where you find wisdom. Here's where you find the good life when nobody obligates anybody to anything. That's the good life. Except a whole bunch of ancient wisdom begs to differ. Hey, ancient wisdom calls to us. On this point, your culture got it wrong. On this point, your culture has missed something important. You may not be obligated to the things that you've been told that you are obligated to, but you are obligated. We do not mind that a bit. As a matter of fact, that's fun. You may not be obligated to the things that you have been told you're obligated to, but you are obligated. Owe no one any debt, Paul says, except this: owe the debt of love one to another. Now, that's a big idea to start unpacking, and we're going to start unpacking that next week. We'll think about that. Let me end with a very simple example. Also, too simple. It's going to get more complicated next week. My son got a new job. He starts in a few weeks, but before he starts, he has some time off, and the roof of the shed that's going to become his home office needs replacing. Now, it turned out, once it took the old roof off, it's a bigger job than it had appeared. Turns out that there's water damage there. It turns out that there are carpenter ants going on inside. So, yeah, it's a thing. So a little job turned into a big job. And you might have noticed, it has been warm outside. It was nearly 100 degrees on one of the days when I told him that I was going to help him. It was on Monday. And so it's Monday, and I'm getting dressed, and I'm about to go out the door to go over and help him. And Denise says, you know, you've been working a lot lately. You've been doing these weddings, and you've been doing this extra stuff at the church. And don't you think that you should take your day off? Now, parents all know obligations to our kids never stop. And some of it was that. I love my kids. But there's another reason, and I thought of it while I was putting my shoes on. And I said to Denise as I was just going out, let me tell you why I'm heading over there. And I'm going to give you a hint, and it's only going to take you one word to know exactly why I'm over there. And I'm going to make it even easier. That one word is a name. And I'm going to make it even easier. That name is a name of a family member. And so she guessed a few names of family members, and I said, nope. And I said, nope. And I said, nope. And I said, nope. And then I said, Terry. And she immediately said, oh, yeah, you owe a debt. Go pay it. When I started Common Thread, we had a very unfunctional building. I referred to it as a very nice tool shed. So I knew something about building stuff. I was part-time minister in those days and part-time construction worker. And every vacation, Denise's father, Terry, would get on an airplane and come out and visit. He would come out and do projects with me. We would build a wall, or we would build a room, or we would enclose an air handler. We had this air handler in the room. I don't know how in the world the congregation that was there before us could hear each other, because when that thing kicked on, and you might notice in North Carolina, air conditioners kick on. When that thing kicked on, you would not be able to hear me this. So we enclosed that thing, project after project after project. Now, I did most of the work, it's true. What he did was come and be with me. He was with me while I did it. He helped me think through the steps, and that presence with changed everything. Now, I can't pay that back to Terry. I can only pay that forward. So this week, I'm up on a roof in the 100-degree weather, ripping off shingles, pulling off sheathing, and here's the thing. I wanted to be there. I was grateful to be there. I don't like 100-degree weather. I don't like it muggy, and I didn't like ripping up my hands pulling off shingles. I forgot to put gloves on. He offered, and I didn't put them on. It was not pleasant. I don't like the heat. I don't like torn up hands, but I wanted that obligation. I wanted to be in that web of mutuality, this social contract that we share. Now, again, those are two very, very easy examples. But they both demonstrate an important principle, and that principle scales up. It gets bigger as we get bigger. They point us to a principle that as we grow into, grows with us. A broadening of a concept of what it is that I owe the world. What is it that the world owes me? Now, more on that next week, but for this week, Indwelling Divine. May we be integrated into the web of mutuality for which we were created. May that be so. Amen. All right, folks on the live stream, we are going to dismiss you in just a moment. But before we do, you heard earlier, we are working really hard on making community. Oh, you didn't hear that actually, because I was actually talking to you all during greeting, but we didn't have the right microphone on. So here's what I said. I said, we would love to invite you into community. Here's the problem. The problem is you're watching this on a screen, and it doesn't matter if you're watching live or if you're watching with time shifting. We have been conditioned in a screen that while we're sitting watching a screen, we pretty much know somebody's going to come and try and sell us something. So as soon as somebody asks us to do anything, our natural response is, no, I'm not going to do that. And so we invite you all the time to say, hey, would you please click this button, and we'll send you an invitation to get involved in community. But if you're accustomed to living in a sales culture, you don't want that, so you don't do that. Here's the thing. We found out during the pandemic, you can, on an online way, sustain, even strengthen authentic spiritual communal relationships. You can do that. We found it out. It works really, really well. Here's what's much harder to do. It's much harder to initiate those relationships. During the pandemic, we kept up with people we already knew. It's much harder to start a relationship. And the primary reason it's harder to start the relationship is because when you're sitting there watching this on a screen, you don't initiate. You don't click that button. I don't either. I wouldn't. I understand exactly why. But the invitation is come and get to know some people. Come and be part of a community. We really are not trying to sell you anything. All we want to do is expand the capacity to experience the divine life that we've learned you can experience better together than you can alone, and we would love to include you. So you will see on the notes within YouTube 2 links. One of them is for What Are You Thinking? If you happen to be live, you could head over there right now. Or if you want to just get an invitation to find out other things that are happening, we would love to do that as well. So let's dismiss the folks online. If you would, please put your hand on your heart and let us remember as we go that we are, every one of us, carriers of the indwelling divine. Love and joy and peace and patience and kindness, what's called the fruit of the indwelling spirit, is in us. And if you would extend your other hand to our city, let's look for opportunities to share the stuff that's already in us with the people that we live and work and go to school with, looking for opportunities to repair and heal our worlds this very week. Amen. God bless you all. You're dismissed. Those of us that are here, we are not dismissed. Take a breath. We're talking about obligation.